Okay. A lot of people have been asking about my macaron recipes, so I thought I'd do a video just to see if it's something that I can share and you can learn from that. So for macarons, I'll bring up all the ingredients as I use them, but you do need a kitchen scale. Okay, so kitchen scale, cup. I'm into minimizing the number of things that I need to wash, so excuse me if I just kind of reuse stuff. So we're going to put it on ounces. Um, ounces. So I'm doing a 1.5 recipe. This calls for 3 ounces of the almond flour. I just get the, maybe a little bit more, so I'm at 3.1. I just use the Costco almond wrench. And then 3 of that, I re-tear it, and right on top of it, I will use 5.3 ounces of confectioner sugar. Nothing fancy, store-bought confectioner sugar, 5.3, and I'm using a 2-cup measuring cup, and I kind of get it right to the rim. Let's see. So this is 5.3 ounces of confectioner sugar on top of the 3 ounces of almond flour, and 5.3-ish, 0.1 over is okay. And then you have to sift it. So I have I'll move this over, I'll put it here, and then I'm going to sift it in a sifter that's relatively pretty small, so that's the size. Sift the whole thing a little bit at a time. All of that in there. I'm gonna sift it a bit gone through. The big ones you can toss or leave behind. Okay, so the real coarse ones, I'm just not going to add. Let's set this aside. And then on another bowl, turn on the scale. Oh, maybe not this one. So actually using the same measuring cup I used before, because all the ingredients are going to go together, I'm going to tare and then change the units, don't ask me why, to grams. And then I am going to pour 75 grams of sugar. This is just granulated sugar. I use sort of the organic sugar from Costco as well. And this is going to be 75 grams of sugar. And if you're a little bit over, it's fine. It's 78 grams. Set that aside, and then I put a bigger bowl. I'm going to tare that. I cracked some eggs, and these are egg whites, and maybe you can see egg whites. 3 egg whites, and I've heard that if you crack it ahead of time and keep it in the fridge, it kind of dries out a little bit more, but it should be about the same grammage. So I'm just going to pour, I think one of the eggs were large, so it's measuring about 98 grams. I think you can go from 80 to 90 grams. It won't be a big problem, but you kind of want to not to do too much. So I have 90 grams of egg white in here, and then I'm going to sprinkle some cream of tartar. Just enough to sprinkle some like it's snow. And then I get my hand mixer. I tried to do a KitchenAid. Sometimes it doesn't, it works, but sometimes it's a little over whipped. So, but be ready to whip it on the whisk for about 5 minutes. So I'll pause it, okay? I do it on about level 5, sort of, so you can kind of hear it. I'll show you a little bit more. So that's where we are. And then I add the sugar. Mix it in a little bit of time. Make sure it incorporates. And then this is going to happen for about 5 minutes. So you'll see that the liquid will get meringue. So it's been about 2 minutes, and I just want to show you it's still pretty thin, but getting a little bit thicker. Sorry, no good camera angle. Oh, and I did want to mention that the eggs have to be room temperature. So if you're just pulling it out of the fridge, probably not a good idea. Usually I pull it out of the fridge the night before, let it sit at room temperature. When I try to speed it up, sometimes I put it in warm water to get the egg back to room temperature before I crack it and separate the whites. But this time I actually separated the whites, had it overnight in the fridge, and then brought it out and left it at room temperature during the day, and then it came on. So we are at about 3 minutes. My mixer has a time, and it's getting a little thicker. So you can see it's forming, but it's still very liquidy. I'll pause it again. So I'm getting to the tail end of my 5 minutes, and my mixer actually stops at 5 minutes. So actually it looking pretty good. It's holding. Get it all off. And we do the upside down test. So you can see that. And upside down, it doesn't come down, doesn't come down. So that's ready, the meringue's ready. So then I use a, I brought the spatula out. Now if you wanted to put food coloring, you put the food coloring in now, but you should use the gel coloring and just mix it in. I'm gonna do a lemon one, but just go straight. Sometimes the food coloring, if you put too much, then it kind of ruins the consistency as well. So I'm gonna take the mixed powder, almond flour and the confectioner sugar, and put it in 3s. I'm gonna put 1 batch in, and I'm just gonna literally fold it in. Fold it in. If you remember Schitt's Creek, they talked about folding it in. So essentially you're not mixing it, but you want to incorporate everything in there without creating too much bubbles in there. And then my second batch. So essentially I go back and forth. Sometimes they say just go back and forth, and I sweep the sides. Back and forth, sweep the sides, back and forth, sweep the sides. It's pretty well incorporated, so this is what it is, and then I'm going to put the last batch in. Now at this point you don't want to mix too much, so you got to slow down. Make sure you incorporate, fold. So it's really just gentle. Incorporate and fold. So you'll see it's kind of doughy and sticky. So keep going. Keep going. Get all the sides, go down the middle, back and forth. And then once you get these mounds, and you start pouring it down. So that's still a little bit sticky. You they usually say you want to do it and be able to get a figure of 8 without being chunky. But each fold is just going to be barely a few strokes. Getting there. I could do a little bit of figure of 8, but that's actually pretty good. I would probably stop there. If I do this and just get a little bit of a figure of 8, and by the time I handle it a little bit more, it'll be good. I'm gonna make a lemon one today, so I got the lemon. I zested the have some lemon zest, really in a fine one, so you don't want big pieces. So I used this one and grated it. The drier, the better. And then I'm just gonna put a little pinch. I'm a little pinch kind of cook. And then fold that in. Get a little bit of that taste and that little chewiness in the macaron shells. Then I get one of the big bags, piping bags. Make a small cut. I already have a small cut in this one. Make it a little bit bigger. So just a little tip, maybe a little less than a centimeter, okay? Fold the tip, put it in a bigger cup where you can pour. And then you're going to pour it in. Pour it all in. There are piping bags that are smaller. This is the bigger ones of the piping bags that I've used for the 1.5 recipe. The 1.0 recipe, you can use a smaller piping bag. So now I'm going to my So I'm going to pull this up. Close the top, twist it a little bit before I pull it out. And then I'm going to start piping. 1, 2, 3. I just count because I count how long I'm squeezing the bag for to try to have some consistency. But you're just using the marking, and use the inner marking because it'll spread out to the outer one. The macaron sheet. Okay, so I'm going to do this one. Okay, I'm going to pause. Okay, so now everything is piped. So I have almost 3 trays for that. So I have the 30, 30, and then a little less than 30 on the last one. So close your ears for this one. You probably don't want to hear it, but I'm just going to drop it. And I do it about like 20 times, and you're breaking the bubbles. And it'll settle down the tips of the macarons. Okay, now I'm done dropping it. And now take a wooden toothpick and just pop the little bubbles that you may see on the surfaces. That'll pop. Let's see. I'm gonna show you. Maybe not. So this one, you can see that little bump, and that opens up the bubble, and then it resettles down. A few more of those, pop all the bubbles, so they rise well. Colette, you're making too much noise. Just kidding. Well, I'm recording. Okay, now we're just gonna let it sit for about an hour, and then we'll have to check the shells when it's dry. Okay, then I leave it kind of drying in a well-aired location for the 1 hour. I actually reuse that piping bag. I rinse it out with hot water, rinse everything out and let it dry, because then I'm actually going to reuse that for the filling. You can reuse the piping bag because it doesn't have any butter, so it's not greasy, and so it actually cleans very nicely. And at this time I get the butter out, so about 1 stick of butter out, but probably just use a half of it, like a 1/4 cup, and about 2 cups of confectioner sugar. So so I'm gonna get ready the 2 cups of confectioner sugar. As always. And in the spirit of reusing stuff, the initial bowl that I used for sifting the confectioner sugar and the almond flour, I use this to make my filling. So I have the butter, it's resting. I'll probably end up using a 1/4 cup, maybe a little bit more than a 1/4 cup, just because I have more than 30 cookies, so. And then the 2 cups of confectioner sugar, but sometimes I may add more just based on how much I need. I don't like the frosting or the filling too sweet, so I don't use more than 2. And then I prepared I squeezed my lemon, half a lemon for lemon juice, and I'm going to use that to thin down the filling when I mix it. So it's been about a little more than an hour, hour and 15 minutes. And I'm just checking to see if the shell is set. So if you just gently touch it and it doesn't stick, then it's ready. And you want to set the oven at 300. And your oven, you kind of have to know your oven, but it just turned to 300. But if you look on the inside, it really hasn't really turned to 300 yet. So you want to let it sit until I have to get an oven thermometer that's inside, because the outside one is not very accurate. Well, not that it's accurate, but it takes a little longer to reach that temperature. So keep that in mind. And I'm getting all the ingredients ready for the filling. And if you don't know already, in order to soften your butter, you actually can put some hot water in a mug and turn it upside down, and it softens your butter. All right, now let's start with making the macaron filling. I'm gonna do half of the softened stick of butter. probably a little generous half, maybe 1/3 cup. Anyway. Oops, that one's going in the butter. Okay. And Kun is talking on the phone with Yetunde. He's gonna come up for Thanksgiving. So let's blend it and mix this down. And really just try to whisk down the butter first before you add the confection sugar. My bowl's a little light, so it just spins. Anyway, so confection sugar, a little bit at a time. Now for this, because it's a lemon filling, I'm going to use my lemon juice. And just use a tablespoon. Just do a little bit at a time. That wasn't a full tablespoon, it was half a tablespoon, but I just used it twice. And mixing it up. You guys probably don't need this tutorial, but just mixing in all this. Get a little more of the lemon juice. That's probably about 2 tablespoons now. Okay, so the frosting or the filling, kind of a similar frosting kind of recipe is done. So probably used about 3 tablespoons of this lemon juice, fresh squeezed lemon juice. Yeah. And so that's ready. Now I don't use vanilla because it's a lemon flavor. But I was also thinking that I was going to add this to the inside filling of the macaron filling. So that'll be a lot of flavor. I think the oven is ready.
Yep. So then he had like he has to do all these chores and stuff like that.
So what I do is I place it in the middle. The back is reading 300 and the oven's making 300, and then I set the timer. Alexa, set timer for 8 minutes.
8-minute timer started.
So 8 minutes, the filling is ready to go. After the 8 minutes, I actually turn the pan front to back to front for another 8 minutes. And then I will tell you how to check it. If the cookie doesn't move or doesn't slide from top to bottom, that means it's done. But if it slides a little bit, then you just add 2 minutes more at a time. So it's always fun to look through the oven and see sort of at least the feet rise and making sure that the top is not cracking, which is always encouraging and exciting. And you'll let that go for a little bit longer. So the second 8-minute timer went off, and I'm going to see if the macarons are stable. So it's a little shaky. You can see that it's a little shaky. So I'm going to put it in for another 2 minutes. That's 2 more minutes. Let's see if it's set. Yeah, it's pretty. Oh, maybe not. If it doesn't set properly, then you end up risking the backs falling down. Okay, so these came out of the oven and cooled down a little bit. So, and they, you can just kind of pop it off the silicone mat, and then find the right sizes that match, and put it next to each other. Okay, so I have them lined up. The inside shell up on one, and then the matching one top will be on the side. I got my filling in a piping bag, and I'm using the sort of the serrated tip looking one because that gives a nice look as I pipe it. So what I'll do is, where do I go? Pipe it around, and my plan is to do this, and then I will put a little bit of the Ujacha marmalade in there. So that, I'm just gonna do little batches at a time, especially since this is a small batch, and if the cream kind of dries, it doesn't close very well. So use this marmalade, use a little bit. It's got little bits of the what do you call it? The rind in this too. So some of it will have a little rind inside, but that's okay. It makes it yummy. Not too big. And there. And then I'm just gonna close this like this, a gentle press, and looks good. Little gentle press. Little gentle press. Now the macarons shells, when I'm baking it, I will say that it's probably better to make it a little over baked than under baked, because if you underbake them, the bottom sticks to the silicone and you'll have a hollow. So that's not good. Even if the cookies are a little hard, once you put all the filling in and it settles till the next day, it actually blends very nicely. You still have the crispy texture with the chewy inside. Somebody's making a drink over there, making lots of noise. And so, down there. I like using different fillings. I think they work pretty well with a lot of the macarons. My last passion fruit one, I actually just put the condensed sauce, in the filling itself and blended it together, and that came out okay too. But again, here we go, little push, little push. I mean, it still tastes pretty good straight, but the flavor definitely changes the next day. So that's it. You can freeze it in a Tupperware, like a sealed container. Freeze it in the freezer for about a couple of weeks. They're good. Or in the fridge, you can keep it in the fridge and it'll last about a week, but I'd say after that it sort of dries out. All right, I hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.